I'm here. In fact, that's what we're talking about tonight. I'm here, so let's cheer. And my name is Buzz Noe. I'm one of the practitioners at the Center for Spiritual Living, Pleasant Valley in Camarillo, California. And there's something on the screen here that I'm trying to read. I don't know what it's saying, but anyway, we do these Thursday uplifts. It's a midweek lesson that we practitioners provide and the ministers for the center, just because in the middle of the week, sometimes between the Sunday settings and things like that, it keeps telling me something here. Sorry, folks. The current frame rate is too late. I don't know what that means, but I'm here. So the reason for this title and the idea for tonight that came up was the fact that on Monday was the holiday that for many, many years we have celebrated in this country as Columbus Day, in honor of Christopher Columbus, who discovered this country, thinking it was India back then, and came on and allowed Europe to now know that this was another continent over here. It allowed everybody to see that the earth was round and not flat. So it was really an advance in the human civilization and what we're all about. Now, over the past few years, there's been a lot of incentive to, instead of honoring Christopher Columbus, who came and found this country and brought all of Europe over to it, to honor instead on this same date the Native Americans, the insidious population that was here to begin with. Because as we know, when Christopher Columbus came in and brought other people in to settle in here to what was then what they called it. I don't even remember what they called it, but it wasn't America back then. It certainly wasn't the United States. But the indigenous population that was here, the Native American population, certainly did not do well by the people coming in and taking over the land. And there was several years, in fact, a couple of centuries, of interaction between the indigenous people of America and the settlers that were coming in here. Basically fighting over who was doing what on the land, who was using what. But over those same years, and the Pilgrims are a really good example of this, over those same years, the Native Americans, the indigenous population that was here, also helped the settlers coming in from Europe to learn better how to be part of this land, to grow things, what was native here to the country that they could eat, and started the civilization that became the American population several years later, and helped everyone that was here to manifest a livelihood and be here and be well and create the civilization that became that. So what it comes down to now, and I certainly feel that it's valid to honoring the indigenous people of this country. And of course, we're in honoring indigenous people of all the nations and all the continents all over the world. But specifically here in America, the Native American population, if they weren't here, there would have been a lot of additional struggles and things like that would have come up. And one can make the assessment that if it wasn't for the Native Americans, the indigenous population of this continent that we have grown into and onto, there may have been some big problems that would have been confronted by the early settlers, and things would not have worked out as well as they did. But at the same time, in honoring the indigenous population of this country, we also still have to honor the fact that Christopher Columbus took a courageous step in the human evolution to sail across what a lot of people thought was a flat surface of water and found this continent here. So what brought this to mind to me was that if it wasn't for Christopher Columbus, and if it wasn't for the indigenous population that helped us to survive and thrive through a lot of situations here, then there's a good chance that we wouldn't be here now. And there's no way to say for certain what would be or what wouldn't be if these things didn't occur. But the absolute, and I always go to this a lot, the absolute is we are here. And so if you're here, You have to look back at all of history that evolved and developed and went forward as it did, as having to be that way in order to be here. Because it's one of those things where I go to the absolute. The absolute is the reality of now, is right here. Any other alteration to that absolute is imagination. You can dream that, hey, we'd be over there instead of over here. We can imagine that we would be a bigger population if it wasn't for the indigenous Native Americans that were here, that we would be better off if Christopher Columbus hadn't actually discovered this country and we were back in Europe. You can imagine all those things, but the reality is we're here. And when you look at that absolute of reality that you are here now, then you have to assess that everything happened the way it did in order to be here now. So if you find a reason to cheer that you're here, to celebrate the being here now, then that also gives you reason to celebrate all the things that happened everywhere. Some of them good in our assessments, some of them bad. There were wars, there were disease, there were famines and things like that throughout the history that in a lot of instances, if it took away a loved one that was specifically connected to you, then it comes up in the human situation to kind of regret that that occurred and wish that it hadn't. But in doing that, this thing keeps coming up on the screen. In doing that, you also have to understand that the alteration in the evolution of the universe from something not happening or happening more than it did back then could create a huge change somewhere else. And there's no way to know where things would be if they weren't exactly the way they are now from what happened previous years from ago, centuries ago. There's just no way to make that assessment other than using your imagination. And we could use our imaginations, and it's always fun to imagine that you'd be over here instead of over there and things like that. But just know that it is your imagination. And the reason I say that is because when you are imagining things, it's crazy to be upset about the fact that things are the way they are and not the way you would have imagined them to be, because that's an imagination. That's a dream that's creating something in your mind. And the only reality of life is the reality that you're in right now. So what I always advise people to do, and I advise myself to do this as well, is you're here now. And so look around at what's going on now in your life. Find a reason to be grateful, to see that the blessing is that you have in your life is that you are here now. And then you can assess everything that occurred through the evolution of the human species and through history itself. You can look at all of that as being part of the process that brought you here. And so what do you do to choose to cheer being here? That's up to each of us as individuals. For myself and for Lynn as well, we find that the connection with nature is what puts me in the cheer of being here, because nature is always such an amazing aspect of existence to look at and admire and refer to the beauty of flowers and trees. And as we come into fall, the fall colors. And if you can go out or even within yourself and see a reason to be grateful, to be happy about being here, then you can find a reason to be happy and cheerful about everything that occurred to be here. You can cheer Christopher Columbus and his discovery of the country. You can cheer the indigenous population of this country as allowing us and helping us to get through all the things that occurred to be here. This thing keeps coming up on the screen, sorry. Oh, I don't know what it's doing. It keeps telling me that something is too low, but I don't know. I hope I'm coming forth there. So where this comes up to me a lot in my life, I call it the human dichotomy, is because as you can see, I'm getting older. In fact, this in 2 weeks, I will be 76 years old, which always seemed like an old person's age to me. But now that I'm getting to be 76, it doesn't seem that old. I still look at myself as being young enough to have quite a bit of life in front of me. But the weird thing about this, what I call the human dichotomy, is that you see things from the past, a picture from 30, 40 years ago, I'll see a picture of my daughter, or I hear a song, some music that you really enjoyed when you heard it 25, 30 years ago. And it's at the same time that I go, wow, that's such a great song, I stop and go, wait a minute. How long ago was that? And it comes up to me that the life that I'm living has gone on for so long. And we as humans know that we have a finite existence in this universe. So it's just a logical, common sense thing that every minute that you are here in existence is 1 minute less that you will be here for however long you will be. And so that can be scary. But if you simply go, hey, I'm here now, and this is a pretty nice season to be in. This is a pretty nice place to live. I've always felt that about Ventura County since we moved out here. This is a great place to be. This is a great time to be here. Yay. And now that lets you get into that cheerful attitude about being here rather than regretting or moaning or bemoaning some aspect of your history or your life that brought you here. And we've done some research on this because it does two things. It brings your mindset into a more cheerful aspect of what's going on. And that, at the same time, will really assist your overall health. Because if you find a reason to be happy, to be cheerful, that helps your brain health. And the more you help your brain health in its connection and in the way it's seeing this, the more that helps your physical health, because the brain is what is in control of the rest of our body. So if you get upset about something, if you get disgruntled about some aspect of history or something that happened in your life some time ago, that takes away from that brain health, and that's going to take away from your physical health over a certain amount of time. The happier you are, the more cheerful you are, the more that you find joy in life, the healthier your brain will be and the healthier you will be. So that's why I wanted to bring this message forth tonight. Find a reason to cheer as you look at things that happen in life and you start to wonder if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Just stop at that and look for why it's a good thing. Why is it a good thing to be here? Is it the outside, nature as I mentioned it? Is it some food you're eating, something that you love to drink, something you love to watch, something you love to hear? Look for the things that you really like in your life and go to them rather than looking at the things that you regret or that you wish had happened a different way and things like that, because, as I said, you can only then imagine what would be the case. And imagination is fun to use, but it doesn't create any distinct reality as much as what's really here right now. And I communicate with God quite a bit because as a practitioner, I treat for myself and for others as well. And one of the communications that I have is to refer to God as, hey, forgive me for the human dichotomy, because we are finite here. So when you're finite, you start to measure what happened in the past. You start to wonder what's going to happen in the future. When you're infinite, as is God, as is the creative force for the entire universe, you're only here now. It makes no difference what occurred or what's going to happen. This is the now. This is where God is in presence, in place, doing the things that God does, answering the call that you give to God. It's all happening right now. And when you recognize that you have that connection with God only in the now moment, doesn't make a difference what you did last week, last year, last century. It doesn't make any difference. You're here now and you're connected with God. So the more that you can see the oneness of the now as being that connection with God and the beauty, the joy, the blessing that the now is that you're in, the more that connection becomes real. And what I've noticed is also, we all have a future. If you're here now listening to this and watching this, we have a future ahead of us. That future is going to be more beneficial and more of a blessing if you go into it with the acceptance and the gratitude for the blessing that you are here now, rather than moving forward with the concern, the dismay, the stress, the distress of what happened to get you here, what you didn't do sometime, what you could have done differently. Those things are learning lessons. So look at them as being something that helped you be here and gives you a learning lesson as you move forward. But the more positive you are about the fact that you're here now, the more readily that moving forward in your life is going to open up and be where you want it to be, have the things occur that you want to occur, more so than if you go forward into that with that stress and distress and regret about what got you here and how you got here and how you're going to get out of here. Those things are stuff that comes up. Again, it's our human dichotomy. It's hard to look at the blessing and not have concern about something that you didn't see as a blessing that sometime happened to go. But those things all happened to be here. You're here. Let's cheer. Let's now open up the door to where we're going forward from here, knowing that it will continue that blessing through the oneness that we have with God, through the oneness that we have in connection with everything else that's here, certainly in the universe, but more specifically in our lives right here in where we live, what we're doing, the people with whom we're connected. It's all here. It's all part of that oneness with God, and it's all here for our good, individually and collectively, and it's all been done the way it needed to be done to allow this to be the case. Things that come up like that are the fires that we had. Well, there's some going on right now in the state, but a few years ago, that Thomas fire really took a lot of communities out of the way, and there was certainly a lot of regret and concern from people that lived there about this fact that it was happening. But what I realized right out of that is what these forest fires may not always be so good for our human situation, because it could take our house away, it could take part of our family away, things like that. But those fires are eventually going to allow a more positive development of nature. Trees will regrow and plants will reform themselves in where those fires were. And so it is God taking care of the universe, which sometimes can get in the way of our human situation, but it is all there for the overall evolution and evolvement of nature and the universe together. So it's all happening for some positive aspect somewhere. So if you take that attitude of like, oh, this is not helping me right now, but it is helping somewhere else, something else, some other aspect of the universe is going to be growing from what's going on now, then it allows you to more readily recognize that blessing, more readily find a reason to cheer being here, even if it's not exactly what you would have put in on your notebook as what you would want to see happen. It's here. It's allowing you to be here. It's allowing you to share this. And if you share the gratitude and the glory and the blessing that being here now is, like I said, it's going to help you with your mental health, your physical health, and help everyone else with whom you're connected to also be more positive and moving forward. So once again, I just wanted to mention that as we celebrate Columbus Day, and it is still a national celebration in a lot of places. Some places have changed it to Indigenous Peoples Day to honor the people that were already here when Columbus came in. And we should honor both. We should honor everything that occurred in the history. I mean, this even goes back to some things that we look back at as being not a good thing for the human situation. I always think of Nazi Germany. I mean, that caused a huge disruption in the human situation, but it also allowed things to open up and be there for more people in more ways than if it had not occurred. And so these are the things that you always have to keep in mind. Something is happening always for some reason, for something to benefit. It may not be yours. You may not see it as being yours specifically, but know that it is for the benefit of some aspect of this universe, and you will eventually, the human situation will eventually grow from that. It will move it forward more positively, more readily, and just be a better thing for all of us. So that's the whole idea. You're here, let's cheer. So if you go forward with that idea that this is exactly the way it's supposed to be, and I'm getting a benefit from this, you'll see that benefit. You'll come into your recognition. And then the other one, of course, going back to our beloved Reverend Betty Ann Brennan, who put forward the wonderful affirmation that my life is unfolding perfectly no matter what, allows that same aspect of looking at life now, however it is, and know that it's taking you forward in a positive direction, regardless of what you may anticipate is going to happen or feel is going to happen. If you know it's going to be unfolding perfectly, it's going to have a lot more opportunity to do that. So we're here. Let's cheer. Let's know we're moving forward exactly the way it should be. And that gives you a real good reason to express your gratitude to God and acknowledge the oneness that you have with God and with everything else in nature. So this is the idea. Let's move forward with cheer in our minds and love in our hearts, and things will work out the way that they're supposed to for us eventually, if not just in the momentary time. So that's essentially the lesson. And what I'm going to do now is close this out with a brief treatment affirmation about this being the case, and let you all have the rest of your wonderful evening and enjoy it, and know that you're here, so find a reason to cheer. So as we close out, let's close our eyes. And as I say these words in the first person, please make them your own. Know along with me that I do know that right here and right now, in this specific singular moment, in the continuing evolution of the time and space evolution, the continuum that we call life itself, I know that I'm here now, and this is exactly the way it's supposed to be, because there's no alternative to what is going on right now, right here. And I know that I'm here. So knowing that I'm here and that this is a blessing to be here, a blessing from God, I know that it is all connected to the oneness that is God. There's one God, one source, infinite in its nature, in its love, in its energy, in its power, here to create the life that we are leading individually and together. And I know that I'm here now, and through that oneness that I'm here with, I'm connected to the oneness that is God. And I also know that it is my mind, my psychology, my heart that is bringing forth the message from God to everyone with whom I connect. I am God as me right here, right now. And I am as me, creating the existence that I am living through, that I'm enjoying, creating the existence that I'm making for everyone with whom I'm connected. So I choose for that existence to be cheerful, to be a blessing, to express my gratitude to God for allowing me to be here in the oneness of life. And knowing that as I continue forward with this mindset, that this is a blessing that I'm in and that I can share it with everyone else, I know that these same qualities will be coming back to me from everyone and everything else in the universe. And I choose to go forward with my main motivation in life to be coming from love, adding to that kindness, compassion, sharing, caring, giving as I can, whenever I can. And I know that as I manifest these qualities in my life, they are reflected back to me. And I thank God for the awareness of this connection, my ability to communicate and create the life I'm leading, to create the life that I can share with everyone else. And I'm releasing these words from my finite self into the infinite source that we see as being God, to take care of the details. That's pretty easy when you're infinite in power, somewhat limited when you're finite, but I know that God will take care of everything and take care of me. And I thank God, and I send this on with these final words to say, and so it is. And so it is. I'm concluding my midweek uplift for you tonight. I want to thank you all for sharing, for being here and sharing the idea, and take that forward in your life. You're here. Let's cheer. Thank you and good night. Love to all.